It started with a single offhand comment. Your spouse mentions, almost in passing, "I think we finally need a new mattress. My back has been killing me." You nod. It's a reasonable request, a mundane adult task. But as they walk away to brush their teeth, something in your brain clicks into gear. The interest-driven engine roars to life. Suddenly, it isn't just about a mattress. It's about coil gauge and foam density. It's about the heat dissipation properties of copper-infused latex. By Tuesday, you've memorized the manufacturing specs of brands you didn't know existed on Monday. By Thursday, you're knee-deep in Reddit threads from 2018, hunting for a specific discount code that might, just might, make the perfect hybrid bed affordable. Every spare second of your week is consumed. You're researching at red lights, you're scrolling during lunch. Or perhaps it's the summer vacation. The destination is set, the flights are booked, most people would relax. But you've spent the last 7 days scouring every travel blog, TripAdvisor review, and hidden gem YouTube video. You've built an exhaustive, terrifyingly detailed itinerary of 150 different activities. And then the trap snaps shut. You look at the abundance of options you've curated, and instead of feeling prepared, you feel paralyzed. The very research that was supposed to save the trip has now made it impossible to choose. You've optimized the joy right out of the room. If this all-or-nothing intensity feels like the story of your life, you aren't just thorough. You may be experiencing the neurological phenomenon of ADHD hyperfocus. Today, we're going to look at why your brain turns a simple task into a week-long crusade, and whether that laser focus is a superpower or a sophisticated trap. To the outside world, you look like a paragon of productivity. To your partner, you look like you're ignoring them. But to you, it's a trance. This is the ADHD paradox. How can a brain defined by a deficit of attention suddenly possess a surplus so powerful it becomes a prison? Today, we go beyond the memes. We're pulling from current peer-reviewed research, including a 2024 validation of the first standardized hyperfocus questionnaire and a decade of time perception studies, to answer the question that haunts every neurodivergent soul. Is hyperfocus your greatest asset, or is it a sophisticated trap? For years, we've been told ADHD is about being easily distracted, but current research suggests that's a misnomer. It's not a lack of attention, it's an inability to regulate it. At the heart of this lies the dopamine reward pathway. In a neurotypical brain, dopamine signaling helps the prefrontal cortex, the brain's CEO, prioritize tasks based on importance rather than novelty. But in the ADHD brain, that signaling is dysregulated. PET imaging studies led by Dr. Nora Volkow at the National Institute on Drug Abuse have shown that adults with ADHD have measurably reduced activity in the dopamine reward pathway, particularly in the left caudate and nucleus accumbens. The current understanding isn't a simple low dopamine story. It's a story of dysregulation. The system doesn't release dopamine reliably for tasks the brain rates as boring, but it can flood the system when something is novel, urgent, interesting, or competitive. That flood is what you're chasing when you hyperfocus. Your brain has finally found something that pays it. Studies on hyperfocus, particularly the Hupfeld, Abagis, and Shah 2019 Living in the Zone paper and a 2024 validation of the Adult Hyperfocus Questionnaire, found that hyperfocus is significantly more prevalent and intense in adults with higher ADHD symptomology. The leading interpretation is that the same attention regulation circuitry that struggles to engage with low-reward tasks can become stuck on high-reward ones, because the brain's normal mechanism for disengaging, reorienting attention based on changing priorities, is the very thing that's impaired. That's the ADHD paradox in a sentence. The same broken volume knob that lets distractions in also makes it hard to leave a song you love. As Dr. Edward Hallowell famously put it, you have a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes. Once the engine roars to life on a project you love, your executive functions, the brakes that tell you to stop, eat, or go to sleep, simply aren't strong enough to slow you down. To understand if this is a superpower, we have to look at the 4 distinct ways hyperfocus shows up in our lives. The flow state versus the frictionless slide. Think of a professional coder who builds an entire app in a weekend, forgetting to sleep. They feel like a god. There is a thin line between flow, the positive psychological state described by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and hyperfocus. While flow is energized, intentional, and aligned with a meaningful goal, hyperfocus is often compulsive and stimulus-driven. The Hupfeld study and others suggest that adults with high ADHD symptomology don't reliably get to choose what they hyperfocus on. It often locks onto a low-value target, a Wikipedia rabbit hole, a video game, the comments section, rather than the project that's due tomorrow. It feels like magic when it works, doesn't it? But we have to acknowledge the guilt that comes when the magic chooses Reddit over your career. Time blindness. You tell your friend you'll be there in 10 minutes. You decide to quickly fold one pile of laundry. 2 hours later, you're still in the laundry room, reorganizing the entire linen closet by thread count. Neuropsychology research, including a meta-analysis of more than 50 studies on perceptual timing in ADHD, shows that ADHD brains have measurable deficits in perspective time perception, the ability to track and estimate time as it passes. This isn't governed by one brain region. It involves a network. The basal ganglia, prefrontal cortex, supplementary motor area, and cerebellum, all of which show altered activity in ADHD imaging studies. During hyperfocus, that whole network is essentially outvoted by the task in front of you. You aren't ignoring the time. Your brain is failing to track its passage. You aren't being selfish or flaky. Your brain just lost its map of the day. The post-focus crash. After a 6-hour stint of intense creativity, you finally wake up. Suddenly, you feel irritable, physically exhausted, and mentally hollow. Researchers have started calling this the hyperfocus hangover, and while the precise mechanism is still being studied, the leading explanation involves a return to baseline after sustained recruitment of dopamine and norepinephrine systems, the same systems stimulant medications target. This crash is one reason why many adults with ADHD report a higher risk of burnout and depressive episodes. You push the engine into the red zone for too long and now the engine is smoking. That gray feeling the next day isn't laziness. It's physiological recovery. The social shadow. You're at a dinner party, but you've just discovered a new hobby, say, hydroponic gardening. You spend 40 minutes explaining the pH balance of water to a guest who just wanted to say hello. This is social hyperfocus. When a topic triggers that dopamine engagement, the ADHD brain has a harder time monitoring social cues, reading the room, or masking effectively in real time. It comes from a place of passion, but it often leaves you feeling like an alien when you realize, usually on the drive home, that you overtalked. So, is it a superpower? In a world designed for 9-to-5 consistency, unmanaged hyperfocus is a liability. But in a world that rewards 0-to-1 innovation, it can be an elite tool. The goal isn't to cure hyperfocus, it's to put a leash on it. Here are 3 mindset shifts. Externalize your brakes. Since your internal sense of time is unreliable during hyperfocus, you cannot rely on your brain to tell you when to stop. You need inconvenient alarms. Don't set a phone timer. Set an alarm in another room that forces you to physically stand up and break the visual plane of your task. The bridge method. The hardest part of stopping hyperfocus is the transition friction. When you know you have to stop, don't just stop. Write down the very next step you would have taken. This bridges the dopamine gap, making it less painful to walk away because your brain knows where to pick up later. Gentle integration. Stop calling it a shameful habit. Research shows that hyperfocus is a common, measurable feature of the ADHD experience, not a personal failing. When you feel the pull, ask yourself, is this a trap or a tool right now? If it's a tool, set a window of time and dive in deep. If it's a trap, change your physical environment immediately. Turn off the lights, change the music, or step outside. If you've spent your life feeling like a failure because you can't focus on the right things, please hear this. You do not have a broken brain. You have a brain that allocates attention by interest rather than by importance, and in the right environment, that's a real strength. The same intensity that makes you forget to eat is the intensity that allows you to master a craft in months that takes others years. You are capable of a depth of thought that most people will never experience. That said, if hyperfocus, post-focus crashes, or time blindness are actively damaging your relationships, your career, or your mental health, that's a signal to talk to a clinician, not to push through alone. ADHD is highly treatable. A diagnosis isn't a label of less than. It's a technical manual for a complex machine. You just happen to be driving a Ferrari on a road built for bicycles. It's going to be bumpy, and you're going to overshoot a few turns. But the speed you can reach when the road finally opens up. Don't fear the focus. Just learn to drive it. What is the strangest thing you've ever hyper-focused on? Tell us your trap stories in the comments. Let's see how many of us are in this together.